Between Two Amps is proudly sponsored by Liquid Death. Right now I am enjoying a mango chainsaw.
I got some severed lime. If you don't know, they have some new flavors that have come out recently,
and they're amazing.
They're really good.
Yeah, there's a little bit of agave infused in there.
Yeah.
And so it really makes those flavors pop. I'm actually really stoked on it.
Yeah, it's really good. Murder Your Thirst, by the way. That's what I do daily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could possibly get through a podcast without murdering my thirst.
I agree.
I mean, really, I don't think I could riff.
Yeah.
Without murdering my thirst.
I mean,
is there anything that you can think of that you could possibly do without murdering your thirst?
No.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. I can murder my thirst. Perfect. But I definitely murder a lot of songs.
It was a perfect thirst murder.
Perfect thirst murder. Thank you. Thanks, Liquid Death. Appreciate it.
Thank you to Liquid Death.
And watch our podcast.
Yeah.
I said watch our podcast.
Yeah. Listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks, and murder your thirst.
Yep.
He was looking for a life that would give him the feeling of being worthwhile.
Welcome to another episode of Between Two Amps. We've got a sick guest this week. You might know him from Breather Resist, Young Widows, Fotocrime, Black God, Fool's Ghost, Black Cross. I'm sure there's more. Brain Banger. Give a warm Between Two Amps welcome to Nick Thieneman. How you doing, buddy? Did I brutalize your name again?
You said it right.
I got it.
You got it. You got it right.
we just got through COVID. So Niraj lives in the back house and the same property. It was just like my whole family got it. Niraj got it, and and also we have a newborn, so my brain is just kind of like. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Nick, you have a child, don't you?
I do. I have a 11-year-old. Well, he's nearly 11. He'll be 11 in July. Yeah, we're starting middle school stuff, and I'm not prepared for it.
Oh, it's great. I've got a 12-year-old. She's getting ready to go into 7th grade. And the difference between 5th and 6th grade, it's like night and day. Like it's definitely like a window into teenage years for sure.
Yes. Well, it's coming whether we like it or not. It's going to happen. So I'm just I'm just kind of bracing for impact,
It's never not an adventure.
Yeah. Very true. That's very true. Yeah.
Man, so I guess kind of to start off, what was your entry point into either picking up an instrument or getting into punk? Was it chicken and the egg, or did it all kind of happen at the same time? Like, where did you start?
Well, I grew up kind of in the country, basically on the outskirts of the city. So it's I got exposed basically through friends, and really the gateway was Nirvana. Like Nirvana was the gateway for me, like through and through. I had no concept of like anything but radio music. Like whatever is playing, whatever's top 40, whatever is on the hard rock radio station, whatever that is. I had no concept of anything else until like Nirvana just kind of hit me like a freight train. Like I was like, oh, like that was the band. So that kind of rolled into Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and Melvins and Jesus Lizard, and then that went even further still out, so it's like all those bands just kind of opened up my world to like all kinds of things I didn't have no idea that even existed.
Yeah.
So how did you like? Yeah, I know Nirvana was definitely on the radio, but like, how did you kind of get into like Jesus Lizard and stuff like that? Were you watching like 120 Minutes or? Like...
I didn't have trouble. I mean, I had no exposure. No like. Do you guys remember that channel, The Box?
The Box. It was like, I don't know if I know that.
Like a music video channel like MTV that you would call in and request videos.
Yes, I do. I do remember that.
I could get The Box on this crappy old TV that was my grandfather's that you had to tune, tune the channel in, and for some reason I could get that in, and I would I would watch that to see if I could anything cultural that would give me like some sort of epiphany, I basically my mom and dad both musicians. So my dad played bass, my mom is like a instrumentalist and sings, and that's what she did for her career basically. So she would go to music stores and we would just kind of like, she'd be in there for like an hour and a half, looking at CDs or music or, sheet music or whatever, like, in the day where there were Camelot Musics where you could go where it's just like, a gigantic store of cassette tapes and CDs and what have you. So I would look for anything Nirvana related. So I found the shape of the year punk broke, which is like a video that was done in '91 with Sonic Youth as the main draw. Then it was Nirvana.
I've seen that, yeah.
And it was like it had all of those bands. So it had Dinosaur Jr. It did not have Melvins, but it had Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr., Babes in Toyland. It had a Ramones song. Like they played Reading Festival and Ramones were playing, so they like have that song on there, and it's like all tour footage. And then I was just like, oh man. Then I found a split Nirvana Jesus Lizard CD at Ear Ecstasy. And I was like,
I've never even heard of that. What was it? What was on the Nirvana? Where were the Nirvana songs on that?
It's just like one song, but it's one of my favorite Nirvana songs. It's called "Oh the Guilt." It's like, I mean, it's a great song, and it's like super, just jangly and like a huge mess. Like I'm not even actually sure. Like some of the guitar just sounds like he's got like a spiral 1/4-inch cable that's like spinning around while he's playing. So it's like, it's crazy sounds. And then the Jesus Lizard song, I think it's I cannot remember. I think it's Puss maybe, or I can't remember. But that was my first introduction to that, and I was just like, whoa. Like it was pretty mind blowing. Hearing that kind of music and hearing David Yao for the first time is like,
yeah,
you're like, I had no idea what was going on, and no idea.
Man, it's so funny, like just how, because there was definitely like a huge shift, obviously, like when Nirvana came out. So like my entry point was just a couple years prior to that. So I was kind of Headbangers Ball. Sure. And everything that was on that, which was a pretty wide berth of music. Like, I mean, there was definitely like the 80s hard rock, hair metal or whatever. But then there was also, Morbid Angel and Entombed. And then, they would play the Sex Pistols and, Danzig and stuff like that. But then when Nirvana came out, it's like even like, because I'm 40, I think I'm 43. I'm not sure. But it's just like, even just having 3 years like between there, like it's crazy. Like I, since I kind of straddled it, like I definitely was into a lot of stuff prior to Nirvana, and then it was almost like a shock to my system when Nirvana came out, and like all of my friends were just like, "No, Nirvana is fucking awesome." I'm like, "But wait, we were listening to Rat and like everything else. Like, why are you throwing away those tapes? Like, they're still great." And I'm like, "Oh, but I don't want to give up this." But like Nirvana, like they're pretty cool too. It was so, but it was just funny, like just on 2 years either side of like 40 now, like your musical references and being like kind of alternative or punk or whatever are vastly different. So
Yeah, I mean, I could never like relate to any of those bands. It was really difficult for me to like find. I was just like, yeah, like my grandma had MTV, and I would just go and absorb. When I would go over there, I would just sit in front of the TV and watch it. But like watching videos from that time, I'm like, some of it you're like, oh man, but I could still never really, it was very hard to relate to. But,
right.
Yeah, Nirvana was, and even still like with other bands from that time, like I've never been able to get into Alice in Chains. Like there was never like anything that I was, or Pearl Jam, like it's like that. It was like just really Nirvana, and then pushed back into the underground scene.
Yeah.
Whatever was around them, it kind of, and it's seeing posters, like anything that I could find that had information on it, I was like, oh, they played shows with this band.
Yeah.
That band, and you're like, okay, and then you go and you research. Like the first time I listened to Houdini by the Melvins, I forgot how loud I had my stereo in my room, and I can't listen to that record at a low volume after listening to that. But as soon as the drums kick in on that record, I was just like, and the only reason I bought it was because I was like, it said it was produced by Kurt Cobain, so I'm gonna go like whatever. I'm gonna get it, Mom. Buy the CD with this weird two-headed dog. It's gonna be great. And she was like, I'm just glad it's not Vanilla Ice or something something of that nature. So yeah, we're okay.
Oh man. But I mean, that's a great point. Like, cause like I see kind of the through line from, like the more mainstream hard rock bands of the 80s into like a Pearl Jam or an Alice in Chains, where there's this, I was always struck by like, because like the videos would be like larger than life. They're always shot in an arena, whether or not that band is actually playing arenas or not, it doesn't matter. And so like as a kid, I was always assuming like the videos were reality, and like every show is like a full pyrotechnic show and like 20 full stacks everywhere, and there's just like bras getting thrown at people left and right, and I'm like, and like, part of me was like, wow, that's really entertaining, but then also it was discouraging, because it's like, man, at that point I was already thinking like I would love to play music, but like, how do you do that? Like how do I go from like playing air guitar on a racquetball racket in the mirror to having pyrotechnics going off on a stage, and is that the only path? So
yeah, for me that music was unattainable. Like I couldn't. There's no way that I could even like play that. Like, because I was just like, man, these guys are like real guitar players and like solos, and I was like, nope, And then like I heard like a punk band, and I was like, oh, I maybe could do that,
Right.
like
Right.
And some Nirvana songs are 3 chords, it's like
So when did you start? Like, I know your family has a lot of musicianship in it. Like, when did you be like, when was the transition from, or was it happening concurrently while you're finding out about all these bands? Like, were you starting to pick up an instrument and trying to play along, or?
Well, I just asked my mom. I was like, I found her guitar, and I picked it up. She had this like Ovation, like this Ovation acoustic electric that has the plastic back.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they sound horrible when they're not plugged in, but they sound all right when they're plugged in sometimes. And also, it's also kind of sounds like a harpsichord in a certain way. like a really tinny, trebly sound. But yeah, I found that, and I immediately picked it up left-handed, and I'm left-handed, right and left-handed. So I was like, that's the natural way that I picked it up, and she was like, well, that's upside down, and I'm like, okay, I wasn't gonna learn Babyface style upside down, and she basically was like, if you're gonna learn how to play guitar, I'm gonna give you an acoustic, and you have to take lessons. And if you're serious about it, then I'll buy you an electric. That's your reward for taking lessons. So I was definitely all in. So I got the guitar that she taught herself how to play guitar on, which is rad.
Uh-huh.
I still have that guitar. It's a Gibson acoustic, like J45 or something. So it's like, it's a very nice guitar to have, like a first guitar. So I played that, and really less than 6 months later, I started taking lessons, and it was like I was just in. So we went and we got this crummy. I shouldn't say crummy. It was a Squier Stratocaster, one of those boxes that come with an amp.
Yeah.
At a local music store where she knew the owner and was like, yeah, we're gonna buy your first guitar here. And we're like, okay. I was like, this is awesome, So I go and I get the guitar and the amp, and I'm psyched. And I go to my next guitar lesson. I remember this. I was like, what? Like, I wanted to know what a power chord was.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't exactly figure it out. Like, he was trying to teach me how to read music, and I was not interested in it. The first thing I learned was Polly Wally Doodle. I was like, man, I can't imagine.
It's so funny. I almost feel like I've heard so many stories of like private lessons starting that way. It's almost like it's like the music world's answer to like the bar for lawyers, where it's just like this thing that's put in place to like kind of weed out and like a barrier to entry, like just making you learn the worst songs to see like, do you really want to do this?
Everyone has that story. I had that story, and I was like, I don't want to play Green Sleeves, it's like shit like that, and it's like, but it's like the outside world, he doesn't know like musicians or like who are like, moderately successful, you put out records, you tour, whatever, to whatever degree. Everyone thinks that you're like a trained musician, like how to, and I was like, I don't know how to read. They're like, oh, how do you write songs? Or how do you, it's like that concept. And I think a lot of guitar teachers, or who become like back in, I guess, our day, who worked at like a local music shop, like, you figure that at some point someone would be like, all right, this education of guitar thing isn't working. Let's try to do something different. Like teach kids what they want to listen, want to play. But
yeah, so I went in, I got my electric guitar, so excited. And I think I am, this is very embarrassing to admit, but I think I like taped a slinky to it for some reason. I don't know why. Like,
as you do.
Like I put like a bunch of stickers on it immediately, that I took off almost as quickly as I put them on. I was like, why did I do that? Like, like I brought the guitar in and I was so excited, and I said, I said, can you teach me how to play a power chord? And I asked him, and he teaches me, and he's like, now, how have you progressed with Polly Wolly Doodle? And I was like, I don't know that. And like the next lesson was like the same, where I was like, can you tell me, what's up, I was basically just asking more information around those kinds of things. And he's like, all right. And he walks out. My mom's waiting in our Astro minivan, and I get in, and he just walks around to her, and he's like, I'm not going to teach him lessons anymore. He's not wanting to learn how to read music. He doesn't care about wanting to read music. Like, that's not what, it's just a waste of your money. Just let him figure it out. And I literally just went home and didn't know how to read tab, don't know how to read sheet music. I would just listen to every song that I wanted to learn how to play and just figured it out. And then I would play along to every song that I had. Anything I wanted to learn, I just used my ear to figure it out. And then I, later on, I had an uncle that got me a subscription to Guitar World magazine, and I kind of taught myself how to figure out tab, and but that was largely it. I just kind of picked it all up by ear,
I mean, that's such a great skill to have. I feel like that muscle, especially now, it's kind of like having GPS in the car and stuff. Getting to use that. Now there's YouTube, and then there's all these apps that'll just translate anything for you. I don't know if you've ever tried Capo or something. It's just you just drag and drop an MP3 in it, and then it charts out all of the chord changes for you.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. but having that really helped in one, playing in bands and learning to listen and figuring out what other people are playing, but also just being able to listen to something even once and kind of have an understanding of what the chord changes are, kind of what the notes are. Do you still learn stuff by ear like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's funny, but I will think if I hear a song on the radio, or if I just think about a song, or we're talking about a song, I can usually go in and just pick up a guitar and find the chord and just start playing it. Usually, unless it's I can't do any shredding type things, but I can find the general area of where it's at, and be able to pick it apart. So, but yeah, I just taught myself how to play anything. I'd go through, I went through Houdini, I went through Nevermind, went through In Utero. That's why I learned that, for In Utero and all the shows that followed that, I think they tuned everything a half step down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I know that it's some of the songs on Nevermind are a full step down, Come As You Are and Lithium are full steps, because I don't think he could necessarily hit some of those higher notes, when it was actually tuned in standard. So
well, Come As You Are, I guess Killing Joke tuned a whole step down for 80s. So.
Sure.
Yes. I mean, if you're going to cover the riff,
you might as well go,
go all the way.
Yeah, so that's basically it. And I can't. I think I did I played with a random drummers. I was always desperately trying to find people to play with, and I also started skating around the same time. But because I lived so far out, there was nowhere for me to skate. I literally had no place. I think, living in the country, living on these crazy winding 1-lane roads. And I remember I went down this massive hill, and halfway through I got speed wobbles, and I rolled the rest of the way down the hill, and I fucked myself up bad. I had road rash so bad. One of the houses that I passed just happened to be outside, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And they like ran out and scooped me out of the road and like took me into their house, and like, I mean, I had road rash all the way up on my legs, on my face. It was bad. So,
Oh man.
Yeah. After that, I was like, well, maybe I should just.
I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. Hang on, but you guys keep going. I can hear you guys. My video's not working.
I grew up in I moved around a lot, but Richmond, Virginia was where I was through like high school, and where we were was outside of the city, kind of like the last kind of more populous area before the sticks. So I spent a lot of time in the sticks, and it was just like roads like that. Like I remember having so many, because like I rode bikes back then too, so I'd go way off into the countryside, and just like so many like the 2-lane roads, and there'd be logging trucks back there, and like nearly got like run over by a logging truck that was just straddling the center lane divider, and came over a hill like blind. And there's like me and a couple buddies like riding bikes coming up the hill, and then this semi just comes over and then just lays on the brakes, and it's just like I can't imagine like being laid out on the road. I'm glad you're still here.
I still have a scar on my arm from barbed wire fence. From coming around a corner and there being a school bus that I didn't see, and I was just like, and I just went off into the fence, and it just cut my arm real bad, but not stitches bad, thankfully. But
man.
So after the Squire, what was your next guitar?
Man, I kind of traded guitars, like I never kept anything. It was like for the longest time, I was trying to find something that really fit, and nothing seemed to really gel right. So like I had like a Hamer Explorer copy.
Oh no way! Was it an American one, or was it like because like in the 90s they started doing some import Hamer Explorers?
I think it was an import, because that would have been like mid to late 90s whenever I got that.
Yeah.
And I had I had an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. that I actually really liked.
Yeah.
It was a great guitar. I wrote a lot of songs on that, actually. And I had a Squire Jaguar for a little bit that was all right, but nothing really clicked. I bought, because of previous conversation, I bought a Jag Stang when it came out.
Yeah.
But that like to me was like,
It's always seemed like I vaguely remember playing one when they came out, but they always seemed like just this weird kind of blobby, like not quite Mustang, not quite Jaguar. Like, did you get along with it, or was it?
I think I had it for maybe a year and a half, and it was gone. Because it like the thing about Mustangs or Jaguars or Jazzmasters in general, like all the pickup selector switches, everything that's in the way, I pick incredibly hard, and it's like I'm not trying to, but it's like I'm punching the guitar at times. So I've tried to have more finesse with it, but it's really difficult for me to do, because I've just done it like the entirety of my playing. So it's like hitting a selector switch while you're like trying to strum a guitar doesn't work. Like like if I want to have a certain sound and it moves it to a bridge, or moves it to the neck, or whatever I'm doing, I just get like so all the guitars that I own, none of them have anything above anything above the top half of the body. Like it's like something I look for. I'm like, no, I can't.
Right. Or
I'm gonna have to like put a cap on it, or like tape it, because I will inadvertently hit it. So yeah, none of those guitars really sat well with me at all. And then like I just kind of mostly stuck to that acoustic guitar, which I will say, going back to like what my mom told me, which is, learning how to play on an acoustic versus an electric. I mean, she was like, if you learn how to play on an acoustic guitar, your fingers will be stronger. When you move to an electric guitar, you'll be able to play so much faster.
That's true.
And so I was like, yeah. So when I switched to electric, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
These power chords, they don't hurt as bad.
Yeah.
They don't hurt so bad. The strings are like so much. The action was like way lower on that. It was, yeah, it was very, very true.
Yeah.
What,
The other thing with starting on acoustic that I know, because I was the same. Like I'd found like a old harmony that my dad had tried to play at some point and then gave up. He went through like every instrument under the sun trying to be able to get proficient at something. So there was just this wasteland of like failed attempts at playing an instrument. So I picked up the guitar through the acoustic, but like transitioning, like one of the things that like was definitely the strength, like trying to get an F chord, like that was kind of the ultimate test for me. But also like coming away with that with like a better right hand feel, like with dynamics and like how to approach like switching over to the electric, like definitely I feel like that helped a lot with just like a lot of the times I'm just digging into everything, but like being able to back off, like if there is a clean part, like knowing how to kind of finesse that and kind of change things up, like yeah.
I think I was on a kick for the longest time to find the guitar with the lowest action, not really understanding that you could make that better. Like you concept of like, well, you could find this guitar and you could lower the action and make it better. But I was in a lot of like as I got into high school, you find out pretty quickly, I think after high school, who is going to be playing music, like who keeps up with it and who's just like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So I had friends that were way into like the Louisville music scene and way into In Point and Sunspring and Guilt and Crane and Evergreen, all these bands that I had no idea it even existed. So I kind of got brought in through mixtapes from friends who were like, man, check this out, check this band out. And I would say that Guilt was probably like one of my first like local band loves that I was just like, oh my god, like they blew my mind. So, like all the records. I think I mean, Bardstown Road, Ugly Box. The first time I heard that, my understanding is that it was quite a big disappointment. The recording of that versus live.
They were a great band live.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but all of the records like really like kind of turned a corner for me. I was just like, man. And Young Widows, last time they got together and played, we got asked to open their show. So it was like, that was awesome. It was great seeing them play. It was great to play with them. The little full circle moment. But so I kind of got into it through that. But then you start, working your way through musicians and start playing, and then you find yourself amongst a community of people that you're all like trying to work towards the same goal, is just to make music and have fun and go to shows. And so I was in a ton of like hardcore bands where I was like playing guitar, or I was singing, just singing, or playing guitar and singing, and I kind of went through all of those really up until like the early 2000s. And then I was in this metal band called Abscise, and
what is that? Abscise?
Abscise, yeah. And we had two singers, and like it was, it was very, it was a lot of fun. I'm not a like proficient guitar player in that way, so it was kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But but I had this tiny ass Ibanez guitar that had the lowest action around, so it wasn't like
You finally found the guitar.
I didn't need to do very much of anything. I could just, those fingers just would glide around effortlessly. Yeah. And then we broke up and had a last show, and really directly after that, the drummer of Breathe or Resist and the singer of Breathe or Resist were both in that band. And the singer, Steve Sindoni, he had been talking with Evan Patterson, who was, at that time, he was just doing Black Cross, or their Black Widows at that point. And he was like, yeah, I want to do another band that kind of sounds like Kiss It Goodbye or Dead Guy or, Dead and Gone kind of stuff. And that's kind of, Steve was like, well, hey, do you want to play bass in this band? And I was like, sure, yeah, that sounds awesome. And we got together and started practicing. But that was the first band that I was in where people where we had direction. And Evan was very we're going to do these things and we're doing it quickly. We're going to go out there. We're going to play shows. All the other bands had been in prior, and we didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
We had no idea of okay, we have a recording. Now what do we do?
Right.
How do we get shows? We played shows regionally, but.
So how old were you going into the new band? What age was that transition from having no clue to having direction?
I mean, I was in my late teens,
Okay.
and then early 20s when Breathe or Resist was. I think we started playing together in 2002.
Okay.
And so that would have been right. That would have been when I was 20. So, we started touring. We played some shows in 2002, maybe, but I don't. We got together and just rehearsed, nonstop. And then Evan,
you guys are super tight, and I tell so many people this. Your bass tone in Breather and Young Widows is my favorite bass tone that I've probably heard.
Thank you.
It is so awesome. So we definitely have to get into that. But
yeah.
It stemmed, I think, largely from only playing guitar to that point. Because when I first started playing bass, it was okay, I played it like a guitar. I mean, I played chords a lot of the time for most of the Breathe or Resist stuff, So it's kind of getting to know the bass a little bit. You got to know it real fast because we were moving at a lightning pace in comparison to every other band that I'd ever been in. It was very every other band I'd been in was somewhat casual. This was we're okay, we're gonna actually do something. So it's we got together, we wrote 8 songs within a few months, and we initially had another guitar player, and then Evan was I want to be the only guitar player. I'm yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So that happened, and then we just started I mean, we were practicing multiple times a week, and then we went in and recorded our demo, and that was actually our first EP that we did. And every song is back to back to back. So when we would play, we only had 8 songs. It was only it's 20 minutes of music or something like that. So that's what we did. No breaks. It was just a solid 20 minutes of music. You have just enough to catch your breath for, it's just half second, then it's back into it. How it is on the record, which Only in the Morning, that record, how it is on that record is how we played it live. So it's just
Who'd you guys write with?
Write with?
I mean, sorry, who'd you guys record with?
Kevin Ratterman.
Oh, for that record, okay.
So a lot of the National Acrobat stuff was done with Kevin, and then one of my high school bands recorded, it skipped school and recorded with him.
Yeah.
It's our senior year, which was we're skipping school. gonna go make music. But it was awesome. It was great. A really good experience.
So how did you approach? So you get asked to play bass. Like what? How did you approach? Like were you borrowing gear, or were you starting to try and figure? Like how did you like piece that together to be like, all right, I'm playing bass in a band. Like, did you sell a bunch of gear and like get bass stuff, or like
at that point,
I know what you wanted.
At that point, I didn't have much of. I had some guitar stuff, but once again, it was like nothing I was in love with. Like nothing I was like, that's the guitar for me. Besides my acoustic, that's all I had. So I ended like I was using Evan's bass. He had a jazz bass that he was using for Black Widows, and I was like, this is cool. So I got pretty comfortable with that, and then I went up to our local music around and bought one for like $250. Bought a Fender that was in good shape, and at that time I was using mostly Evan's gear because it was just like that's what was there. It didn't make sense for us to have anything else. But so I was playing out of 415s, and even at that point we were like I was doing stereo amps, but I wasn't doing like I didn't have an ABY box.
Okay.
So I was just running it straight in. I wasn't really I can't remember what pedal we used to do. I think it was a tuner or something like that we had that had two inputs. I can't remember, but so I wasn't channeling back and forth. But I think I had a Sunn, or Evan had a Sunn concert lead and a hard key like rack mount something bought. So we used that for a while, and then we just got into Sunn amps like really, really heavily because they were so cheap.
At that time they were so cheap.
I mean, you could buy a Sunn concert lead or concert bass for like $150. $200 if it was in really good shape, you're like, oh man, that's $250. Like this one's gonna last. And we had a graveyard in Evan's garage of like all of the Sunn amps that just went kaputs over the years. I mean, they all kind of just eventually died, and often in the most unfortunate times, like in the middle of shows, amps. And one of my favorite bass amps that I bought that I just absolutely love was a Sunn concert bass, and Breather had signed to J Tree, and we were on this J Tree United tour with like it was From Ashes Rise and Strike Anywhere and Challenger. We were on tour with them, and the last show of that tour, the amp just caught, like just started smoking, like midway through the set, and I was like crushed, just crushed, like oh man. So at that point, I started trying to figure out a better way to like what I need a reliable amp. I need something that's gonna actually stand the test of time, not just I can't fall in love with something and have it have it be destroyed. And at that point in time, we didn't know anybody that would fix them. We had no clue, And I think at some point Evan sold like all those amps for like $200 or something like that, which in hindsight we could have gotten them fixed and taken them and could have had them.
Right now, you could have.
Oh yeah,
made a killing. It's like
for sure.
I think anything with the Sunn logo on it is like a minimum of like $500 on up.
Right. But I ended up getting another solid state amp. I've just always, for whatever reason, I've always been with solid state amps, and I feel I've had tube amps, but nothing has really ever stuck for whatever reason. I've always had solid state. So I found an Ampeg 200T on eBay that I bought in like 2004, I think, or 2005, and it was like $400. It was a lot of money, or $450 with shipping. It was like almost $500. It was a lot of money mean, like at that point, I was just like, well, I'm gonna do it, and yeah, and I still that's the amp that I have used ever since, and I actually,
Oh, really?
yeah, I've only used that amp on every Charmer, the second Breather Resist record.
Yeah.
I used it on that, and I used it on all the Last Breather stuff and everything for Young Widows. So,
Wow.
and I actually found a second years later, and I bought a second. So, I mean, that's when I got into like stereo kind of stuff and channeling back and forth. And
in Widows, you channel back and forth, right?
yeah. I don't play out of 415s anymore, but I play out of 215s, which, like we found later on, because, the first, like all Breather Resist stuff, I mean, we were playing with so many amps and cabs.
So many amps and cabs. It was crazy towards the end.
It was full definition of a wall of sound. Like that was like, I don't understand how you could hear the drums. Like it, I mean, it's insane. So like Evan was playing out of 2 full stacks, and I was playing out of 415s, and it was just like a wall. And that's what we did for the longest time. The first Young Widows tour was like that too, until we got to Emperor, and
oh yeah,
we played a show with Russian Circles in Louisville, and they had just gotten their backline.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like one of the first backlines that Emperor had done, and we were just, oh man, we have got to figure this out. So we immediately like got in contact with them and got Evan has these Sunn columns that we use.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah,
and we got a whole backline of just those. So it's like
they're like the columns with 412s in them, right?
Yeah. So the outside were lights. So we had lights on the outside. Then Evan had 2 12s and a 15 on either side, and then I had 2 15s in the center, and that was our backline for a long time.
Wow.
That's sick.
And until we decided to put everything into like one cab. And
yeah, you guys did lights into one in the cab too, right? Like you guys, I remember this. You guys got them from Emperor, made them, right?
We did. It was
Wait, so what is one cab?
Well, it was 3 lights on the top, which were just baffled for 12-inch speaker.
Okay.
I figured out the light thing. That's been for like all of it was for most of Breather Resist.
Yeah.
And all of Young Widows. And when I was like 13, I went and saw Stone Temple Pilots and Cheap Trick.
Nice.
Cheap Trick, he had these car headlights in a half stack, like on either side of him, and they were insanely bright, and like they would just like flash like on and off, and it was rad. And that just like kind of stuck with me for a long time. And I remember driving back from a tour, and I was like, man, I really want to put lights, because we were like, you go and you play a show, and some people they're like, this music's really loud and intense. We should just put like flashy lights. Like they should be swirling and strobing the entire time.
Yeah, the first band I saw that did that was was like Dillinger Escape Plan early on, when they had like the light guy, the utility like light guy, and just like how much because I mean they're already fucking chaotic. Like Calculating Infinity comes out, I'm just like, what is happening? And then seeing them live, I was just like, my head melted. Brains like coming out of my neck. I was just like, this is insane, like having all the lights coordinated. So when you're designing these are you controlling it with a foot switch, or?
Yeah, I just have a single switch. Actually, in the beginning, our friend Brent, who was like roadie / merch guy that came with us on tours, we weren't like, how do we switch these on and off? He would just stand behind the cabs and turn them on, and then go and like watch the show. And then I was like, at the end of this song, he would just unplug them. And then That's how it was for like a long time.
Oh, but I love the like because like those things are so cool. Like it's just like I remember we did I played in Darkest Hour. Like we did a tour with the metal band 6 Feet Under, and they had this stage setup that Chris Barnes, who used to be like vocalist for Cannibal Corpse, he had paid like I can't remember how much. It was like thousands of dollars for these like metal saw blades that like they had in front of their cabinets on the stage. And like originally like the concept was that there was lights that came out of them, and then it would like as the blades went around there would be fake blood squirting out of it. And so the first night of tour they're like, all right, man, this is big. And like I had just seen them from the front, and I was just like, I wonder how they're gonna work these. And then like I went to the side of the stage, like when they're like, oh, it's gonna happen. Like they had 2 techs, and what they had done was they had taken like just like these Makita drills were like taped to the back of the saw blade. So they're sitting there like, all right, 1, 2, 3. And then like the saw blades start going, and then they did the blood the first night, and it just drenched the stage, and the guitar player was like nearly ate shit like several times because there's just like standing liquid all over the all over the stage. Like, all right, maybe we won't do the blood, but it was just like so many, like going back to like the Cheap Trick thing, like some of those things just seem like that's crazy. It's got to be this like crazy thing. And it's just like seeing behind, like, peeking behind the curtain and seeing, like, oh no, it's 2 dudes with a drill, like leaking like red food dye.
I mean, your guys' live show was like intense. Like with the lights, it was like just spot on, and just like it sounded like a wall of sound. And I forgot that Evan one time showed up. You guys were playing Chicago, and I was living in Chicago at the time. And you guys had that cabinet, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And it's like 3 lights in it, and then like all the the cones. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah. What was funny about the first time that we used them on the Charmer CD release show in Louisville, and Steve, our singer, he didn't know. Like he had no idea that they were there, and that he knew they were there, but he didn't know what they were. He just figured that they were speakers.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna be louder. Great. So like, it's funny. There's this funny moment. I think there's a video of it on YouTube somewhere, but it's like this moment where like we asked for the lights to be turned off, and he seems relatively confused. But then like when we kick into the song, when the lights come on, it's just kind of like it's like a like we're like a brief moment. He's like, holy shit, what's going on? Okay, that's it. This is happening. That's what those are. Yeah. But that was great.
Like in Europe and stuff, did you guys have that set up, or you guys would do something else?
We just dealt with not having them, but the last Young Widows tour that we did, actually the last 2, I just like grabbed lights from Home Depot, and we try to pack them as tightly as possible and just throw them in like clip lights.
Got it.
Actually I have somewhere, sorry, the Bill Murray pedal. So later on I got
Bill Murray.
So later, I always had these like little switches that you get for like Christmas lights at Target or that just have the little switch. But then I took it to Fuzz Roche's Ryan Rajeski, and he was like, "Hey, can you make me a light switch that like is like a pedal, And he was like, yeah, I can definitely do that. And I just handed him like something like this, but just like in a pedal box. And he was like, okay. And he was like, what do you like? Do you want anything painted on it? Do you want like anything? And I was just like, I don't know, like Bill Murray or something. Like like just like totally joking. However, I'm gonna
correct.
Yes, that's correct. It's Bill Murray with a light bulb over his head. So that's what I hit whenever I turn the lights on. And it's been like that for I don't know.
That's my new favorite pedal.
That is awesome.
So I have it open because I have to replace the extension cable that's on it because all the plugs, they're all loose. So the lights, if I move that thing at all, the lights just start flickering, and I gotta replace it. But yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good pedal.
Yeah, it's a great pedal. People are like, what the hell is that? You know, like what does Bill Murray do? And I was like, oh, it lights up my life, evidently. Like, yeah.
What basses were you using in Breather and in Young Widows? Fender?
I used that Fender jazz bass for a long time until I really, really fell in love with the Gibson RD Artists.
Okay.
Yes, and that was like that was the bass I was like, yeah, like I really, really wanted one. So I just kind of would look. I mean, you know, you didn't have reverb or anything like that. You had eBay, sure, but occasionally they would come up. But I was like, okay, I just got to keep my eyes open. So we came home. We were on tour. Breather was on tour with Melt Banana, and we had a hometown show. It was Melt Banana, Breather, and Shipping News. Mm-hmm. We were home for that one day, and Evan calls me and he's like, "Do they have your bass? They have your bass at Guitar Emporium," which is like, at that time was like the coolest guitar shop in town. I mean, it was awesome. They had all kinds of random 70s, 60s, 70s instruments that are just like anything you couldn't find it anywhere else, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like if you wanted to go see a museum/guitar store, that's where you go. And a lot of them were very reasonably priced because no one wanted to play, especially at that time, no one wanted to play a Gibson RD Artist or an L6 or, or a Ripper or Grabber.
Yeah.
So
I struggle to put the RD in the same in the same realm as like the Marauder and like L6. Like
sure.
I like the RD is special like that. Yeah. It's a super cool instrument.
Yes,
like
he called me and told me that, and I said I'm on my way, and he's like, I told him that too. So I I grabbed like anything I could like find instrument wise or like gear wise, and I just threw it in the car, and I went down, and I put it on layaway. It was the only way I could afford to pay it. It was the most expensive instrument I'd ever purchased, which you'll find really hilarious at $950. Like for one of those basses, like blew my mind. Like at how much they're going for at present time. I mean, it's shocking.
How are they now?
I got a 78 RD Artist guitar at Atomic Music, which was
all right, yeah,
Maryland area, College Park, and they were kind of like the cool. I mean, they still are like their rad shop, and they actually had two different RD Artists in there at the time. One had like a DiMarzio in the bridge, and the other actually had the Moog electronics still in it, all original. And kind of throw back to your first acoustic, I actually traded them an Ovation super shallow cutaway acoustic and $100 and got that 78 RD Artist.
That's awesome.
Like and I don't have the guitar anymore, and after like I kept it for like 10 years, something like that. Yeah. And when I sold it, I think I sold it somewhere around $1,800, and like now they're just like
it's like $3,500, $4,000. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy. $950 was a lot for that. Like I was like, so I put it on layaway and went back out on tour, and just like paid it off as fast as I could. And then that was like, as soon as I got that instrument, as soon as I got it in my hands, that was it. Like that was the only bass that I ever wanted to play. Like, you know, like it has electronics in it. It sounds, you know, it sounds like a keyboard because, you know, I feel like it works for the bass. You know, I don't feel like it lends itself very well to the guitar. Like all the ES series, I bought an ES Artist years later and regretted it almost immediately because it sounds very bad.
Yeah, I immediately took. I kept all the Moog electronics, but like that was kind of why I ended up selling the guitar because like it's such a huge board. Like they routed out like half of the body. It's almost like a semi-hollow, just
Right.
because of all of the electronics they had to fit in there. And like they sounded terrible. Like it was like a bass cut and boost and like a treble cut and boost, and then there's like other switch. I was just like, I just like ripped everything out and put a JB in it. Like, so is the same on the? Yep, that's it.
Oh my
You
god.
see, you know, and the battery's up here. You can see that.
Yeah, it's a car battery.
Yeah.
So does that have the same Moog or similar like Moog electronics in it?
But yeah, it has the same, and it has like a compressor, an expander.
Yeah, okay.
Really?
And it sounds great. The pickups sound great. I actually realized after I bought it, I was stringing through the body, and I realized that the only thing that I did not like was stringing through. Like I just went through the bridge. Like I think the first string change I did, I switched that, and then I I haven't really done much of anything different with it since. I got a first act Delgada in around 2008, and I had that for a little while, but it was like it's just not the same. You know, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. So ironically enough, I bought that at Guitar Emporium. You know, so it was like 2004 or 5. In 2015, I went into Guitar Emporium, just went in, and they had another one in the exact same location, exact same year. So I had two. I actually have two they're both 78s, and they were made like a month apart from one another.
Oh,
So
shit.
Wow.
And I mean, it was like 10 years ish later, I walk into the music store and I'm just like, and surprisingly enough, it was only like $1,200. You know, like even in 2015.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So I was like, I'm gonna buy that. I'm putting it on layaway. I went and grabbed the Delgada, and I drove it back down. And I was like, here, what do you want for this trade in? You know, and they were just like, oh yeah. I mean, it paid for a lot of it. It paid for like the majority of it, and then got the rest of it. And now I have a nice backup that's, you know, roughly the same thing.
That's awesome. Going back to like when you guys mentioned the guitar shop in Baltimore, in College Park.
Yeah.
Brought back a crazy memory where I was like, damn it. I remember being there. We played a show. It was like 2002 maybe, or 2003 or 2002. Walk in there and there is a Gibson Custom Silver Burst for $750. Like it was like great condition. And at the time, like, oh, I don't have that much money. I'll find it later. Literally, I know it's gonna be like $5,000 now.
They always had like going in there. Like I remember one day went in, there was like they always had some cool Gibsons, and like their amp room was always like stocked with everything. Like, but like they had I picked up, it was like a red Les Paul Standard, and they're just like, oh yeah, Brian Baker just brought that in. It was like, I was like, what? And it was like $1,000. It was like, you know, I saw one come up that wasn't owned by Brian Baker and was like $4,000. Like, it's just like, well, it's red, and they didn't make, you know, Les Pauls in solid red.
Nick, did you ever go to that shop in Chicago, Midwest Buy and Sell?
I don't think so.
I think because Evan and them used to always scope that place because it had like you'd go in there, you'd be like, oh, there's these fucking those Sunn columns or PV columns for like $100 each.
Where was that?
It was like outside the city a little bit. It was called Midwest Buy and Sell, and it was like a pawn shop.
Right.
But everyone realized like in like the early 2000s, late 90s, that the place just had gems, and the guys there were kind of like, whatever, you know. There's so many amps. I remember seeing soft. They just had tons of soft techs, JCM 800s, 900s for like all under $500. You know,
I was thinking about. I mean, it really does. Like, you know, we spent a lot of time at Atomic. I had a friend that worked there, and when we got those giant cabs for Young Widows, so like, it's lights at the top. Guitar in the center, bass at the bottom. So it's 3 12s, 2 12s, and a 15. And they are separated by wood, you know, by plywood on the interior, okay. You know. And then
You're
it's
not
just
getting phase issues.
Well, no, but we did. It seemed like for Emperor, they were just like, whoa, you know, and they didn't know, like, you know, those guys are hilarious, and.
Yeah.
You know, like we picked those cabs up, and they were like just high as kites, and we're like they're just like, I don't know, like we like opened them up, and you know, immediately I found a screwdriver that was like stuck to the magnet, you know, and you know, to the magnet, you know,
not like, the first time I've heard a screwdriver story in an Emperor.
You know, we put all the lights in and we took it, and they were like, they came to the show. We played Beat Kitchen. They came to the show, and they were like, we were really worried about this because they thought it was going to be a problem. Well, it was, which we didn't find out until later. So the biggest problem that we have, even though that bass cab was the cabs are ported at the very bottom, but there was so much pressure from, I think mainly from my bass, that it was actually popping the speaker jack, like the speaker cable, out of the jack. So I would be playing, and I would just like hit something that had a, you know, I would hit a low note or whatever the right note was, and it would just go like, and it wouldn't like fly like across the room. It would just like kind of come out. And I thought the first time it happened, I was like, is there somebody standing behind this amp and just pulled it out? Like, are they messing with me? But is there like is there some sort of like amp gremlin that's just like, you know, just pulls it out? But no. So we ended up at Atomic for multiple days trying to figure out on the first like couple days of that tour, trying to figure out what to do. And we ended up, the amp tech there, we would literally go play a show and then go drop the cab off for the full day, and then pick the cabs back up, go play the next show, and then come back the following day. Like, we did this for multiple days, and what he ended up having to do was put insulation around my part of the cabinet, around the input jack. So it's like fiberglass insulation on the just around the jack, and that helped. It worked moderately okay, but it would still pop out just a little bit, enough to cut my signal. So then at every show, for a long ass time, I had to take duct tape and, you know, put it around the jack on the back, and that's just how it worked.
And it worked.
You know, I would tape the shit out of it on the back, wouldn't pop out, and play the show. Everything's fine. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is the album that you guys did essentially live with Kurt Ballou. Like, what was the impetus behind that, and like wanting to, was it trying to like capture the live show, or what? Yeah. What were you going for with that? How did that go? That seems like it would be challenging.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, in hindsight, we probably wanted more studio time than we actually had. You know, like, I think that ended up doing more in the studio than we initially thought.
Yeah.
But that was all about trying to capture our live sound. Like that was the whole point. So, but you know, playing together, not doing like scratch tracks or you know anything like that. Just having it be like full on. This is what we sound like.
Yeah.
But on that record, I mean, there are like songs that have multiple different shows. I mean, it's like there's one song that starts in like part of it's in Chicago, part of it's in Boston, you know, and it's awesome. Part of it's in the studio, you know, and it kind of segues into that.
You guys
Oh, wow.
recorded drums at Jason's house, didn't you?
We did like
Yeah, because I was there. I was hanging out at that. Yeah, I was hanging out with you guys when you guys were recording. I remember now.
some in his living room.
His
and
living room. Yeah.
we did a whole thing in his basement too, and kind of just worked around. So some of the stuff, like we did split 7 inches around that record, and a lot of those songs that didn't make the record were done at Jason's, or some of them were, you know, the drums were, you know. But yeah, but it's I mean, it was a crazy experience. I mean, Kurt basically just set up all the stuff every night, and we just go through, and you know, he had his board to the side and just record the show. I mean, that record, once again, like kind of how we did Breather previous, we wrote it as like one whole piece of music essentially. So when we would play that, when we played Old Wounds, it was all together. So how it is on the record is similar to how we would, you know, play it live. So we don't stop. We didn't play any other songs. That was just kind of how it went. So it was easy to record a whole set because we're just, you know, we just go. We just start.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
you know, it was mildly insane. I think that we were playing Middle East upstairs on that. I think the only time that we had to stop was there was a fight in the middle of one of our songs. Like play through, like somebody, I don't know, there was a fight. It was like enough for us to stop and be like, hey, you know, stop.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to use that on the record.
Right?
But it was like a minute or 2 minutes into the song. And so I was like, you know, is someone actually going to listen to this song 2 times, essentially? Like, are you going to make it 2 minutes in and then us stop and then
and start over?
Let's go start over again now, you know?
Oh, man.
It was fun. It was quite the experience. Yeah, so we just toured. We started in Chicago and toured all the way up to Boston, and then made our way to Salem because he already had his studio at that point, and just chilled there for like worked there for another week and some change, I think. But it was a lot. I mean, it's a lot to mix, a lot to go through. You know, we played like maybe 5 shows, you know, on the way up.
So how was he mix? Were you playing to a click, or was it just like taking like drum track from one show, guitar track from another, and it was y'all were consistent enough to match that up, or?
Pretty much. I mean, you'll also find this funny, likely, our drummer. So the drummer that was in Breather and the first Young Widows record, we got a new drummer basically directly before that, and Jeremy, and he's a classically trained guy, you know, and he got an orchestra gig where he's on like touring orchestra doing percussion, and we're gonna go record this record in January, and he's on this orchestra tour for like the first 3 weeks of December. And so we practiced like for, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, and then he had to leave. And when he got back, we were like, we have to practice as quickly as possible. So we like finished writing and just practicing songs in between that short amount of time before we recorded. because it was like end of January when we started touring for that and recording all the shows. So, and he worked night shift at Target, so we would literally he'd get off work and he would either wake me up or I would be awake, and we'd get in the car and we'd go practice at 6:30. 6:30 in the morning.
Damn.
Run the set or write whatever we needed to do, and we did that a lot. We would practice we practice in the morning and then we practice in the evening, and it was just a constant rotation of us working through everything until we were okay, this is we can play all of this all the way through now. We can do that. So it was pretty intense. Recording with a drummer as a bass player was it's very it was challenging for me, because you play some of the songs we had written with Jeff and you get used to the way that he plays it, and then the way that Jeremy plays it is slightly different. So it's trying to get accustomed to that, and it's hard to do on the fly at times, and of course you feel everything's riding on that particular moment when you're doing something like that. When you're in the middle of recording, you're just everything is hinged upon this, and but it worked out.
Man.
So what, I guess you've got your bass sound, and I think it's pretty consistent in Widows, and it just sounds great. When you guys are on tour, when you go play shows, what is one piece of gear that you can't, you have to have? Is it the RD?
I mean, it's the RD, but it's
or duct
also
tape.
Duct tape. Definitely duct tape. But it's also this guy.
Oh, what is that guy?
It's a Fuzzrocious rat tail, which he had to change the name to a cat tail because he got cease and desist.
Proco.
Cease and desist.
Yeah. But I've always used rat pedals for and I don't use a lot of gain. It's just kind of really to boost the signal. So, and that's still how it is now, but rat pedals always cut the low end. So you're having to really ram the bass as loud as it can go to get it, kind of to feel like a bass, less like a guitar. Yeah. So he just came up, we were playing a show, and Ryan from Fuzzrocious came up and he was like, "Hey, I made this pedal specifically for you." And I was like, "You did?" I was like, that's incredible. That's awesome. It was super sweet and very, very kind. And I put it on my board the next night, and it just never has left. I mean, that's what awesome. I use. Yeah. So
does he sell that?
What's that?
Does he sell that pedal now, or it's your unique to you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Oh well, it's he sold. I don't know if he made this one in the sense if he modified it in any sort of way.
Got it.
But
it's something that you use pretty. I mean, on your board, right?
Yeah, I mean it's always on, never off.
Okay.
That's. I guess I couldn't without the bass or the pedal. That would be the crucial gear. I've been fortunate enough to find amps that I can get amps to sound how I need them to sound, but that would be it.
Nice.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. It sounds like you've got some shows coming up. Anything that you want to promote coming up?
Well, we got Young Widows is playing shows with These Arms Are Snakes the 16th in Chicago at Lincoln Hall and the 18th in Brooklyn at Warsaw. So that'll be good. And then, of course, playing a show. 40th birthday show, which is gonna be a blast. And I'm doing all three bands that I'm in currently. So Young Widows, Fotocrime, and Fool's Ghost.
That's a killer show.
It'll be fun.
And they're all and everything's up. You can stream everything, right? Or buy it. Yeah.
Stream or buy, yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This is a
thanks
blast.
a lot, Nick. We appreciate it. It was nice to catch up too.
Thank you for having me. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Hopefully we'll get to high five next time you come to the Los Angeles area. So
I'll be on.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Hell yeah.
Fingers crossed. I think
Yeah.
hopefully it'll work out.